Real estate agents, are you struggling with the day-to-day grind, dialing for dollars, putting in hours of floor time with little to show for it? Are you looking for tips, tricks, and tactics to accelerate your career as an agent that will have you closing more homes, working with more clients, and earning more money than ever before? Hi, my name's Cliff Freeman, and I've spent the past 2 decades of my real estate career running one of the top brokerages in DFW and personally coaching over 1,000 high-performing real estate professionals across North America. I created this podcast to share the strategies and tactics you need to explode your real estate business. I guarantee it. All righty. Welcome, Cliff's Notes fans out there, everyone. We're excited to have you here today. We're broadcasting live today from Dallas, Texas, near the intersection of LBJ and the Tollway in the Lincoln Center. And I am super pumped. Don't touch that dial. Put your phones on airplane mode. We're going to blow you away today with how to become the local expert in your market. And I got to tell you, there's so many of you out there who are watching who are not doing it right. So you want to get your notepad out, get your pen fired up and ready to go. You're going to want to take a lot of notes today. And don't forget, if you want to subscribe to our podcast, our TV, sorry, it's not a podcast, it's a TV show, for crying out loud. If you want to subscribe to the TV show, go to getcliffsnotes.com, www.getcliffsnotes.com, and you can sign up there. Travis, I got to get the marbles out of my mouth today, man. What the heck is going on?
What do you call it? You haven't been on the Devil's Elixir a little bit, have you?
Oh, no. No, I was talking about, I bartended when I was in college. I was a purveyor of the Devil's Elixir, but no, I'm fine. I've got some coffee here, and that's going to get me through.
Right on.
But we are, you know what? We got a super surprise for our audience today, Travis.
Oh, yeah.
We got somebody who is so smart. If you put her brain on a razor blade, it would, let me see, is that right? No, if you put my brain next to hers, mine would look like a BB rolling down a 4-lane highway. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Patented Cliffism. We always have to get one each episode.
You got to get it. You got to get it while you can. That's right. All right, let me give you a little bit of background here on this young lady, and she is a superstar, a rock star. She is a senior development professional. I'll just tell you, she runs the Economic Development Corporation in Celina, okay? And Celina is on the tsunami. It's right at the edge of the wave right now for the growth out in North Dallas. She's super smart. She's got 18 years experience in the public and private sectors. I'm just going to read you a little bit of her bio here. She has a master's of urban and regional planning from the University of Florida, and that's Go Gators, I guess, right? Go
yes.
Gators, okay. And she got her American Institute of Certified Planners registration in 2007. She's active in the American Planning Association, Congress for the New Urbanism, and the Texas Economic Development Council. Wow, okay. And she's right here on the show today. Can you believe this? All right, she considers herself a Texan. Her name is Alexis, right? Although she was born and raised in Florida. She got here as fast as she could. Average college football fan and tailgater. I want to hear about that. And on the weekends, you can find her playing and chasing after her 5-year-old son Wyatt and watching sports. And she loves to travel. There's more, but without further ado, let's welcome Alexis Jackson to the show today. Welcome, Alexis. Super excited to have you on the show.
I'm so excited. This is an amazing opportunity, amazing studio, actually.
Well, thank you. Travis does all the magic back there, and so we're always know everything's in control when he's here. If he's ever out of town and we got to do a show, I don't know what we're going to do, but we're in good shape today. All right, so we've got an audience full of real estate agents out there listening today, and we promised, as always, to drop and deliver a ton of value on them. So I want to go ahead and start. I want to unpack right now and drop a bomb on these folks. And you and I were talking over lunch a little while ago, and you were saying that you had a lot of experiences with real estate agents up in Celina. And Celina is for those of you who don't know, if you're not from the area, it's a town that I'll let you describe it, but it's a growing, booming area just north of Prosper, Frisco, Plano, Dallas, up in that area. And so there's a lot of new home sales, a lot of real estate activity going on. So why don't you do this? You said you had some funny stories that are going to be educational
Yes.
for the audience. Would you share with us a little bit? What's some crazy stuff that you've seen real estate agents do up in your neck of the woods?
Yes, thanks, Cliff. Celina is indeed in the path of growth. So we have 10 miles of the Tollway, Dallas North Tollway, 10 miles of Preston. The only other city that has that is Dallas. So we're gearing up for that, as you called it, tsunami. I did receive a phone call from a realtor just the other day asking me when the mall was coming. And I got really excited because there's a mall coming. We're getting how Stonebriar revolutionized Frisco, but that was
Normally
incorrect.
you're the first to hear about things like that, right?
If I know that there's a retailer or commercial company coming, I'm the first to know, usually. And so it was news to me. So there was some misinformation. Obviously, the realtor had heard from somewhere through the grapevine or even online that Celina was getting a mall. And I had to tell her that was not true.
Oh my gosh, wow.
Maybe in 10, 15 years, but we're not quite yet at 20,000 population.
So obviously that we don't know no names, nothing.
No.
But whoever that person was had not done their homework, right?
No.
That was not what you call being an expert in your marketplace, which, by the way, is also in the Realtor Code of Ethics, that you need to have experience in the area in which you work, right? So that's pretty amazing, although it doesn't necessarily surprise me. Okay, you have another story.
Yes, in terms of development and growth, the infrastructure's crazy expensive. Roads, water, sewer. So a lot of times developers use public improvement districts, or do you want to go into that?
The dreaded PUD. We're going to talk about PIDs, MUDs, and PUDs, right?
Yes, we're going to talk about all of that. So I actually had a resident, when they received their tax bill, call me and ask what a PID was. And I should not be the person telling them what a PID is or what this PID assessment was on their tax bill. That should come, from the builder, from the lenders, from the agents themselves. They were very surprised at this the resident was at this extra assessment on their tax bill.
Okay, and agents listening out there, you have to know that if your client is moving into an area and that area is a public improvement district or a municipal utility district,
yes,
or a PUD, public utility district, they have to know about that. That's state law. So that, to me, it doesn't necessarily surprise me, but I still find it amazing that it continues to go on. So speaking of PUDs and MUDs and PIDs,
TERS, we can go all day with acronyms.
Don't get your PUD stuck in the mud, whatever the thing is, right? What is that? What's the purpose of those?
It's to fund development. So there's a lot of upfront costs. And a lot of the residents and the buyers are demanding amenities. So it's splash pads, it's crystal lagoons. It's not just, I'm going to move into a neighborhood. It's a master planned community with beaches and golf trails and large sidewalks, and all of those things cost money. So the developer has to pay for it, the residents have to pay for it, or the city has to pay for it. It has to come from somewhere. And so it's just an added levy to your, whether the developer pays for it or the home buyer pays for it, to fund all of those amenities that the home buyers love these days.
Right. So it gets paid one way or another, either at the beginning or the end. It's
Yes.
either absorbed in the price of the lot to the developer, or from the developer to the builder, or it's absorbed by the end user, the consumer. Right? So that's why people wonder, well, why do I get such a good deal in some of these areas that are PIDs? And the answer is because you're not paying the premium of the development. That's paid out over a 20-year or 30-year period, instead of being absorbed by the developer in the front end. So that's essentially just another way to finance the infrastructure for those areas.
And it can be really confusing, especially with MUDs, because they actually happen to be a city within a city. And I know we've, in Celina, experienced some frustration from some of the MUD residents not being able to vote in the local election. They feel like they're part of Celina, but indeed they're a MUD, a city into themselves. And so that's something that all brokers and the buyers should understand when they're buying in a MUD. That's not the way it is with with a PID, of course, but with a MUD, you've got to know what your rights are. Are you in the city? Are you in the county? What does all that entail?
Yeah, if you just look at your tax bill, right, you can see who you're paying the taxes to. So in a MUD, would you be paying taxes to the City of Celina?
No.
No, right? So you pay it to the utility district, the MUD, the municipal. There I Travis. There I go again.
Just say
what
MUD. It's easier.
Yeah, I think the nickname will help you in this situation.
I think so. Maybe I need some Devil's Elixir. All right. Any other funny realtor stories and really I say funny, they're kind of sad, but I mean they do illustrate a point here. What else? Any other crazy things that have happened in your tenure up there?
Not recently. I'd like to inform your audience that all of that, there's a ton of information online on the city's website. We're there, the city is there to be a resource for everybody, for the community. And so we've gone above and beyond, I believe, at the City of Celina, for GIS, so Geographic Information System. You can put in your address in our system and find out a bevy of information. And really, truly, we did that to empower the brokers, the buyers, so that when staff's not around 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, that you can find out a lot of information through our GIS system. I just want to get that message across, that there's just a huge resource at the city level.
All right. I hope you're taking notes if you're listening out there, because this leads into something else that you and I spoke about before. And that is one of the things that real estate agents tend to do when they're going into a new area. The first thing that they will join is the Chamber of Commerce. And you have an opinion about that, don't you?
I do. The Chamber is a community-led business resource. And that's great. I always encourage everyone to join the Chamber, but that's one side of a giant machine that is local government or is a city. And the Chamber has a specific role, the city has a specific role, the EDC has a specific role. So my point is to get to know the Chamber as well as your city leaders as well as the EDC, because all of those are resources. We're quite frankly here just for the community. We're servant leaders, meaning we're just here to serve the community and be a resource and for information.
But your depth, the assets that you have at the EDC that realtors should really dig into. I mean, you've got maps, you know what's going in where, you know what that city's going to look like 5 years down the road, because you know who owns what dirt, who's building where, who's got permits, and all of that stuff. So how would that information be useful for an agent who needs to become an expert in that market?
Great question. So the most impactful, what I've heard the most from buyers, home buyers, residents, is they move in when you're in a growing community like Celina. You move in, you find your dream home, and then we start to grow and things start to change, and we have to improve the road. So you're living on a 2-lane road. Now that 2-lane road has to change to a 4-lane road. But usually that 4-lane road, the plan and the process for that has been in the works for 5 years. The funding, the design of that. So say you bought your home and it was a 2-lane road, you're going to be impacted, maybe even positively, by 4 lanes because you're increasing the traffic flow. But I've heard of a lot of situations where it negatively impacts, where you didn't know that something, whether it was a road or even a national retailer, was going to come in your literally backyard, because when you bought your house, the backyard was where it's cows, it was green field, pastures. We have a lot of that in Celina, but that's not always going to be how it is. This won't always be greenfield. So being able to find that information of what the city's planning for, and the county, as well as the NTTA, they're expanding roads, they're expanding that capacity all the time. And all that information is there, like I said, years in advance. So just know what's around you, especially when you're buying in a new community. If you're buying in a built-out community, a lot of the times that's not going to change. But somewhere like Celina, where it's rapidly changing, your home, the way it looks today, and your lot and your neighborhood is likely to change.
Right, and I countless times from my own personal experience, and I'm sure many of your experiences as well. You take a client out, you look at a new home, and it backs up. There's a fence, and there's nothing behind it, and all you can think about is, oh boy, I'm not going to have neighbors peeking over into my backyard. I'll be able to, really enjoy my backyard with total privacy. And then a couple of years later, they build gates of prosper right behind your fence. And you want to call your real estate agent and strangle them because they didn't tell you in advance.
Yes.
Okay. So if an agent needs to know that, what you're saying then, if I heard you correctly, is they can go to your office or contact you and find out what potentially could be built behind or next to that subdivision.
Yes, zoning is very important, but know that zoning can be changed. So even from my own personal experience, I'm sitting here telling you, do your research. Where I bought a home in Frisco, the backyard was in Little Elm. I had right, yes. So the Little Elm went through a rezoning. I knew as a planner and an economic development professional that I was buying, there was a vacant lot behind the home that I bought. And I knew it was going to be something. But what I thought was going to be was commercial, a big box retailer. And I was okay with that. It was rezoned to multifamily. So now I'm in a single story, actually it was a 2-story, excuse me. So I'm in a 2-story home thinking that I'm gonna get a larger big box behind me. I was okay with that. In fact, the developer rezoned, which happens all the time. The cities work with the developers. However, there's private property rights, as you know. The developer rezoned to multifamily. Now we're talking 3 or 4 stories, looking into potentially your backyard. That's a different situation, and it happens a lot. And a lot of the times, people just aren't aware of the potential of rezoning.
Right. So it's not really caveat emptor in the sense that, it is in a sense, but if you're as an agent, you've got to be on the ball, and you've got to do the work, do the extra work to know what's going to be built. And it, like you said, the zoning can change, but at least you've got to make that initial effort to find out what's going to be going on.
You do, and pick up the phone. The planning staff at the city, they want to serve, like I said. They are in this business, in the local government, to help the community, to give you all of the information that you need to make the best decision. And we do know a lot. From the very beginning. Like you said, we're the first phone call from the developer on the developer side. Usually it's an 18 to 24 month process to when you see turning dirt, as we say in the industry, or something gets built. But if you pick up the phone, that's all I can say, because those planners, the planning staff, the engineering staff, economic development, they're here to help you and answer your questions.
Okay, all right.
Or take a meeting.
Right, exactly.
Show up at their office.
Right.
And get all the information.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's buried, unfortunately.
But there are people that you have people like even yourself can help an agent find the answers they're looking for.
All the time, yes.
Exactly. So, what a tremendous resource. And I know I, for one, joined the Chamber of Commerce. I've been involved in several. They're great, they're necessary, but they're not sufficient. Don't stop there. You need to go in to and really find out who's winding, the stem winder of the city, where all that information is housed and the assets are kept. Well, that's really great information. And our goal today and with the show is to help everyone in our audience level up, get your game up, so that you can differentiate yourself and really become the go-to expert in your area. And it's with people like Alexis on your team. How could you go wrong? Having the source of the source, right? This is where all the information lives, right here. All right, so let's do this. Let's talk a little bit about other things that agents can be aware of. Now, we talked about taxes and commercial activity and residential rooftops and so forth and so on. And just if you're not from this area, so Celina is just north of Prosper. Prosper is a little sliver that's 3 miles deep and 9 miles wide, 27 square miles. Happens to be where I live. But Celina is this big area that really is kind of like the next big suburb, where with you said 78 square miles of city. This is actually, this is not just extraterritorial jurisdiction.
No.
This is actually
City.
Within the city limits of Celina.
Will be eventually.
Will be.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So when you have that much land, obviously you're going to attract the attention of some big players in the development business. Can you tell us a little bit about who's investing up there? Who are some of the big players up in the northern suburb up there that's about to be part of another part of Dallas?
And I do love the way you described it, Cliff, the tsunami, because the growth is rapidly coming. We're gaining 300 people a month, whether that's from just the state of Texas, people moving north, or it's from other states like California. We all know about the influx of California, and has a lot to do with some of the corporate headquarters. But at the city, our job is really gearing up for the growth and being proactive. A lot of the commercial development activity that we're seeing right now. So our southern city border boundary is Frontier Parkway, with Prosper. So there's 4 corners of Preston and Frontier. Blue Star happens to own the 2 southeast and northeast corners, which we know is Jerry. And then
that's the Dallas Cowboys. For
Jerry
those my
Jones.
friends up in Pittsburgh, yes, thank you.
Big Blue Star.
Yep.
And the northwest corner is in contract and working on entitlement for a large mixed-use project. So there should be some exciting announcements on both of Celina's hard corners, the northwest corner and the northeast corner, by the end of the year. So Blue Star's got some things cooking, Jerry and his friends, and then Lantera is the other developer on the northwest, and they're really looking at utilizing all of that population. There's a tremendous amount of population. You mentioned the Gates of Prosper. That's one commercial base. We believe in Celina, the next commercial base is at that Frontier and Preston location. So Blue Star's a big player. Lantera. We've got long legacy landowners in Celina too that have just fell in love with the community. We have an amazing downtown, and they're just ready for the growth and ready to do something exciting.
Well, Ross Perot's there, right?
Yes, Hillwood, the Berlins, they're there. A lot of early investors. Just all they looked at Frisco and Plano and McKinney and saw the growth, especially along the Tollway, and they said, okay, we're going north because that's where the Tollway's going and that's where Preston's going. We're going to invest now, and I think the stars have all aligned for Celina in terms of the leadership and the vision that we have to be a really truly unique community. We've set the stage for all of that growth that's coming in a number of ways, but there are a lot of players, so it's an exciting time to be in Celina.
Yeah, so you said something that I want everybody to listen to, and that is the growth is headed north because of the Tollway. And in Texas, we're not bound in like you are, where you got mountains on one side and the ocean on the other, right? I mean, there's plenty of land here, so to speak, but we have to have the transportation. And I remember back in the days, I grew up in Dallas. I remember when the LBJ was built. I remember when the Tollway stopped at Forest Lane. It's Forest Lane. It's been so long. Preston Road was 2 lane all the way up to, all the way through to downtown. And what's important to understand is you got to have the infrastructure in place before the money is going to go out there. So, and in advance, and if you're a new agent in town, and you've not really done your homework on where the growth projections are, someone like Alexis is a gold mine of information for you. So let's take a minute here. You mentioned the Tollway. There's also the outer loop that's going in out there. What are some of the big infrastructure projects that are planned in the next 10 years in Celina? You
mentioned the outer loop. So the outer loop is actually just gone to bid. That is a county project, and that is that's our east-west connection between Preston and the Tollway. So it's going to be Celina's opportunity like 380 or 121. So that's the biggest one. We're doing a lot for water and sewer. As you mentioned, roads is one aspect of it, but water and sewer, you wouldn't imagine, and I didn't know about this until I started in this industry, but you wouldn't imagine the type of capacity that a whole master plan community like a Light Farms or a Cambridge Crossing. We're talking thousands of homes in these master plan communities. The capacity needed for water and sewer, a lot of the times when you start out, you do a 2-inch line, I mean, this is type of the verbiage that I think that the agents need to know. What's the difference between a 2-inch line versus a 12-inch line? A 12-inch line, you can actually have commercial come in. But until you've expanded that water and sewer, and those are easy things that you would just learn from sitting down and talking to one of our city engineers.
Right.
To understand, what's coming in, because again, all of that infrastructure, we talk about the residential begets the commercial, but the infrastructure's got to be in there before the commercial comes. I get asked all the time for our residents that live in Celina, when are we getting a Chick-fil-A? When are we getting a Whataburger? They're all looking at numbers, our population numbers, as well as the infrastructure. So we're rapidly expanding our infrastructure as fast as we can.
Well, and I, living in Prosper, I'm a testimony myself. I think that Chick-fil-A, if I'm not mistaken, Travis, do you like Chick-fil-A?
I do. I do. I like Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, I mean, have you seen the new ones where they've got like the 2-lane? It's like
double
it's like a
drive-through.
tollway with guys standing out taking your order.
For sure.
And I mean, they turn that stuff around like crazy. I mean, I don't even think I hit the brakes the last time I went through the drive-through
Yeah.
there.
Very good service with Chick-fil-A.
Yeah. It's good chicken sandwich. But the reality is that it's all of that growth is headed. Dallas has just been that way. I mean, back from the Folsom days, and the growth has always been driven by the tollway. Somebody was describing it as, maybe it was you that said, "Hey, just look at the view down the tollway versus I-35. It's a completely different, when you're driving. I-35 does not look anything like the tollway does with the $1 billion mile and all that stuff and so
the
forth."
density, you've got 10-story buildings, 12-story buildings, even larger on the tollway. Right now, if you drove to Celina, you would not see a 10-story building, of course. But we know, because of that real estate, just looking again at the past and to the south, what eventually is going to be on that tollway. And a lot of the early investors knew that and said, okay, well, we're going to buy 10, 20, 30, 40 acres. So we have a lot of people looking for larger acreages. One of the larger employers, because of the PGA in Frisco.
Oh, that's huge.
That's
Yeah.
a lot of acreage that Frisco now doesn't have. And as you mentioned, Prosper's 27 square miles. We're almost 80 square miles. We've got the acreage for a larger corporate campus. So we've got a few people talking to me that I can't share with yet. Hopefully the next time you invite me back. If you invite me back, I'll
Shh, we won't tell anybody. No, we'd love to have you back too. But wow, this is just, I got to say, in my 30-year career in real estate, if I had the head start of what you've just suggested here about becoming aware of the resources around you, it's amazing what a higher level of service you can provide your clients. You don't have them moving into an area where something comes up behind them that's a 4 or 5 story apartment complex or something like that. No surprises. So that's the bottom line: is get out there, do your homework, meet Alexis. Before I give everybody your contact information, we're just about to wrap up the show here. But I had a note or two. Because you're an interesting person. You're kind of a woman about worldly woman, and you're into all kinds of things like self-development and that sort of thing. So I'd asked you earlier, if you wouldn't mind, would you give some advice, personal advice, to the female realtors in our audience today?
18 years of experience has given me a lot of, hard knocks, right? School of hard knocks, in a good way. I think I've spent the first 15 years of my career just listening and not talking, not because I didn't want to talk or didn't have anything to say, but really I was listening a lot, learning my audience, reading the body language. You can tell a lot about how someone sits, if they're paying attention to you, if they're making eye contact, if they're on their phone. So that would be some of my advice. Listen, know your audience, have some thick skin. I try not to take things personally. Everyone has a bad day now and again. Let it roll off your back. You're here, there's a role, we're all playing a role, and you're gonna have good days and bad days. And if you can stay humble, you talk a lot about humility, and stay generous and open-minded, that's my best piece of advice.
So what are some of the things that what habits have you built into your life? What kind of healthy things have you built in? Lifelong learner. Okay.
We're all busy, right? I'm a mom. I have a full-time demanding job. I just learned about this great app because I'm an avid reader. So I started Audible, listening to books because I didn't have time reading them. There's a new app called Blinkist. Have you heard of it?
It's wonderful.
It is so wonderful.
My gosh.
So if you want to become a thought leader, learn more about your discipline, learn more about real estate, Blinkist, you might be able to describe it better than me because I just signed up, but it's Cliff Notes.
Thank you. That's it. Yes, it is. It's
for books.
Yeah. Yeah, I own about half the company. No. I wish I did.
Can I buy some stock?
Right. No, it is. It's a wonderful thing. It's book summaries, and essentially in 5 or 10 minutes, you can get the meat out of a book that would take 2.5 hours to listen to.
Exactly. And what I also like about the app or the technology is you can highlight aspects of it. So a lot of times, if I was listening to an Audible book, I wasn't able to, go back to something that really resonated with me. And so it's so much easier because it's in a paragraph format. Each chapter is broken down into paragraphs. You can either read it and then highlight the most important parts, or you can listen to it while you're doing your makeup, which is what I did this morning.
Very nice.
And I learned a lot.
And it's spelled Blinkist, right?
Yes,
and I
exactly.
think it's in the
I highly
Android
recommend
and
it
Apple
for
store.
those busy agents out there that want to add to their discipline by learning more.
Yeah, and it's funny because one of my coaches, Tony Geary, who's actually here in the South Lake area, Tony was the first one we were at a coaching session, and he turned us on to Blinkist, and that's what he uses a lot. He's on the go all the time, very busy, and
we're all in our cars.
They say that the average Fortune 500 CEO reads about a book a week.
Yes.
And that's a lot. And I know you're big into self-development, and
yes.
And that's really outstanding. All right, so let's if somebody in the audience here is interested in getting a hold of you,
yes.
Alexis, without your phone blowing up, how can they reach out to you?
Well, my cell phone is 214.
Oh my gosh, cell phone. Okay.
Ready?
Yep.
214-949-6446. SelinaEDC.com is another way to get a hold of me. That's our website. I'm happy to come to any broker meeting, broker breakfast, any gathering of any kind where you think that I would provide any value. I've done those throughout the community. Happy to do that at any point for anyone. That's my job, is to talk about Celina and to talk about real estate, whether it's residential or commercial.
Right, and you're in that community of EDC folks. And I know you're with Celina. That's pretty clear. But if somebody's not in Celina, the same holds true. Whoever runs their EDC,
yes.
That's their job, is to help promote and educate about the city. So, well, Alexis, I'm just thrilled that we were able to get you to. I know you have a busy schedule, and excited that you could come on the show today. Agents, I want you to really. Wear the hat. Get out there and become the expert in your area. Rely on the resources that you have in your own community, and that's what is going to elevate you to where you want to be and hit those goals. Become that expert, that trusted advisor, and just go do your homework. All right, so that's it. Alexis, great to have you on the show today.
Thank you so much.
Hey, next week we've got a very special guest. A good friend of mine, Chris Bear, is going to be with us. We're trying to get him to fly in from Florida. He's actually in Melbourne, but we'll see if his schedule provides. But Chris is going to lay it down. He had an $80 million team that he brought over to join me as a partner in some business we're doing together. And he and his former partner are just killing it. They went a couple of different directions, but they have got so much value to drop next week. You don't want to miss that. Chris Bear, he will be here. That's August 15th. I hope everybody has a great rest of your week. Thanks for tuning into the show today. Alexis, thanks again for being here, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Thank you.